Good afternoon. Well, the Labour Party conference is over. The second party conference of our governing Labour Party, a party that won the general election with a massive majority, but finds itself just 14 months in very deep and in many ways deserved trouble. It's been an extraordinary conference. I've been watching party conferences for half a century. Never before have I seen one name so dominate a conference. And the remarkable thing is, it's somebody that isn't even a member of the Labour Party. Yes, it's me, Nigel Farage, and I thought the Mac cartoon on the front of today's Telegraph summed the whole thing up rather beautifully. The sketch was two delegates leaving the Labour Party conference, one saying to the other, next year we're going to the Reform conference because they don't talk about Nigel Farage all the time. It has been obsessive.
Imagine being so terrified of a political opponent that you actively lobby broadcasters to ban him from election debates even though his party is polling 30% of the vote and is neck and neck with your main rival for first place. That is exactly what Labour is doing in Wales right now, with Labour MS Alun Davies putting pressure on the BBC to block Nigel Farage from participating in the Welsh Parliament Election debate next year. Davies, who faces a major challenge from Reform UK in his own constituency, has claimed Farage has no right to join the leaders' debate and suggested the BBC should only invite politicians seeking election to Cardiff Bay. It is a kind of transparent political manoeuvring that reeks of desperation rather than principle, and it comes against the backdrop of polling showing Labour has collapsed to a catastrophic 10% in Wales, joint fourth place with the Conservatives, while Reform UK sits at 30% and is fighting with Plaid Cymru for first. Labour is not just worried. They are in full panic mode, trying to use procedural arguments to keep Farage off television screens because they know that if he gets airtime, their already dire polling numbers will get even worse. This is democracy by exclusion, and it is as pathetic as it is predictable. Quick favour. If you are absolutely fascinated by Labour's desperate attempt to silence their political opponents because they cannot compete with them in fair debate, hit that subscribe button right now. Over 94% of you watching have not subscribed yet. It is completely free, takes literally 2 seconds, and helps us keep bringing you these moments where political panic becomes hilariously transparent. Cheers if you did. Now back to Labour's anti-democratic scheming. Let us start with Alun Davies himself, because understanding who is making this argument and why is crucial to grasping what is really happening here. Davies is a Labour MS who faces a major challenge from Reform UK in the newly created mega-constituency of Blaenau Gwent, Caerphilly and Rhymney. This is traditionally solid Labour territory, the kind of place where Labour could once count on winning comfortably based on generational loyalty and the party's historical connection to Welsh mining communities. But Reform UK is surging in exactly these kinds of areas, appealing to working-class voters who feel abandoned by Labour's drift towards metropolitan progressive politics. Davies knows he is in serious trouble, which makes his call to exclude Farage from debates look less like principled concern about democratic process and more like naked self-interest from someone desperate to protect his seat. Davies' argument is that Farage has no right to join the leaders' debate because he will not be a candidate and is not a potential First Minister. On the surface, this sounds reasonable. Why should someone who is not standing for election be in an election debate? But that logic conveniently ignores the reality that Farage is a leader of Reform UK, the party that is polling at 30% and could potentially be the largest party in the Welsh Parliament after the election. The people of Wales have a right to hear from those who are in a position where they could become First Minister what their vision is for Wales, Davies said. But if Reform UK wins the most seats, their leader would absolutely be in a position to become First Minister or at least play a major role in forming a government. The fact that Farage himself might not take the position does not change the fact that his party's vision and policies would shape Welsh governance. Davies also said an argument like that may go down well in London, but it does not wash in Wales, which is interesting phrasing that reveals the underlying tension. He is trying to paint Farage as an English outsider imposing himself on Welsh politics, appealing to Welsh national sentiment to justify excluding him. But the polling suggests that hundreds of thousands of Welsh voters are planning to vote for Reform UK, which rather undermines the claim that Farage has nothing to do with Wales or Welsh politics. If 30% of Welsh voters support his party, he is absolutely relevant to Welsh politics regardless of where he personally lives or whether he is standing as a candidate. The complication that adds another layer to the situation is that Reform UK does not currently have a leader in Wales, which creates a genuine procedural question about who should represent the party in debates. The last person to serve as Reform UK's leader in Wales was ex-MEP Nathan Gill, who held a position for 2 months in 2021. But Gill is now rather unavailable for political duties because he was sentenced last month to serve 10.5 years in prison after pleading guilty to accepting bribes totaling an estimated £40,000 from a Russian agent. That is quite the political scandal and creates a genuine vacuum in Reform UK's Welsh leadership structure. But the solution to that problem is not to exclude Reform UK from debates entirely. It is to have them nominate whoever will actually be leading their Welsh Parliament group or running their campaign. The BBC has not yet decided whether it will extend an invitation to Farage, which is diplomatic language for they are being lobbied by multiple sides and trying to figure out what to do. A BBC Wales spokesman said they will be announcing their plan for election programs and coverage in due course, which is a standard non-committal response that broadcasters give when they are under political pressure and trying to work out the least controversial option. However, ITV has already made its decision, announcing back in May 2025 that it will only invite those standing as Welsh Parliament candidates to participate in its debate. That decision means their debate will include Labour's First Minister Alun Morgan, Plaid Cymru's Run API Olworth, Liberal Democrat leader Jane Dodds, and Welsh Greens chief Anthony Slaughter, but not Nigel Farage or whoever Reform UK might want to send as their representative. ITV's decision creates a fascinating precedent and raises important questions about how broadcasters should handle debates when insurgent parties without traditional structures are surging in the polls. On one hand, you can argue that debate should only include people who are actually standing for election and could personally become First Minister. That has a certain democratic logic to it. On the other hand, if you exclude the leader of a party polling at 30% from debates, you are effectively denying voters the opportunity to hear directly from the person whose vision and leadership defines that party. It is a bit like saying we will have a debate about the Conservative Party's policies, but Boris Johnson or David Cameron or whoever is leader at the time cannot participate because they might not be standing in your specific constituency. The polling that is driving all this panic from Labour is genuinely catastrophic for them and represents one of the most dramatic collapses in political support in British political history. Opinion polls suggest a Welsh Parliament election is a knife-edge contest between Plaid Cymru and Reform UK, which is remarkable language because it does not even mention Labour as a serious contender. Despite Labour winning in Wales in every general or devolved poll since 1918, over a century of unbroken dominance, UK has placed Plaid Cymru in first place on 33%. Reform UK support stood at 30%, leaving Labour and the Conservatives in joint fourth on just 10%. Read that again. Labour, the party that has dominated Welsh politics since before the Second World War, is on 10%. Joint fourth. That is not a bad result. That is a complete and utter annihilation of historic proportions. Plaid Cymru received a major boost in its campaign to top next May's poll in October when it secured victory in the hotly contested Caerphilly by-election. Lindsay Whittle, who first stood as Plaid's candidate in the town in 1983, won with 15,961 votes. Reform UK's LOYR Powell managed to secure 12,113 votes, pushing Labour from first into third on just 3,718. Think about those numbers for a moment. Labour came third in a by-election in what should be Labour heartland territory. They got 3,713 votes, while Reform UK got 12,113, and Plaid Cymru got 15,961. That is not a swing. That is a wholesale abandonment of Labour by voters who have concluded the party no longer represents their interests or values. Despite Reform UK witnessing the surge in support in Wales, activists opposing Farage have been accused of launching an intimidating campaign that goes well beyond normal political opposition. Now You Can Fuck Off Home was emblazoned across Reformed campaign office shutters, which is not political debate. It is vandalism and intimidation. Speaking to the People's Channel at the Caerphilly count, LLYR Powell said he was grateful to every voter who went to the ballot box and voted Reform despite the fear and attacks that had been put against them by the other parties. That phrase, despite the fear and attacks, suggests a climate where people feel intimidated for supporting Reform, which is deeply concerning regardless of your political views. Photos shared with GB News appeared to show anti-reform activists had targeted posters across the constituency that were supporting Powell's bid to become the party's second Senate member. Swastikas have been drawn in the corner of one poster, which is vile and completely unacceptable. Comparing your political opponents to Nazis because you disagree with their policies on immigration or the economy is not legitimate political discourse. It is a kind of behavior that debases democracy and shuts down debate. Another poster crossed out Powell's face and emblazoned racist over the Welsh dragon. Again, you can disagree with Reform UK's policies without resorting to vandalism and slurs that shut down rather than engage with their arguments. GB News also understands that anti-reform activists launched a boycott of shops in the former mining town of Bargoed after local businesses started putting up posters supporting Nigel Farage's party. This is particularly troubling because it amounts to economic intimidation of small business owners for expressing political preferences. These are not wealthy corporations with shareholders and PR teams. These are local shops in a former mining town trying to make a living. The idea that they should face boycotts and potential economic ruin for displaying a political poster is chilling and represents exactly the kind of illiberal behavior that ironically drives more people towards Reform UK. The broader pattern here is of a political establishment that has completely lost the plot about how to deal with Reform UK's rise. Rather than competing with Reform on ideas, offering better policies, or making compelling arguments about why their vision for Wales is superior, Labour and their activist allies are resorting to trying to exclude Reform from debates, vandalising their campaign materials, and intimidating their supporters. This strategy is not just morally questionable, it is politically stupid because it reinforces Reform's narrative that the establishment is afraid of them, that the powers that be do not want voters to hear their message, and that democracy is rigged against ordinary people who want change. If Labour was confident in their policies and their ability to win arguments, they would be demanding more debates with Farage, not fewer. They would be welcoming the opportunity to expose what they presumably believe are the flaws in Reform's programme, and to demonstrate why Labour's approach is better.